Tonight, News 5 investigates. Did Colorado Springs police manipulate crime data to improve their response times?
It's a question we've been trying to get the police chief to answer for months. The department says their response times are getting better, but the numbers they provided may be misleading.
Tonight, step by step, Chief Investigative Reporter Eric Ross lays out the evidence and explains why the department may be giving people a false sense of security.
911, what is your emergency?
When you call for help, you expect police to get to the scene as quickly as they can. Statistics the department provided show signs of improvement in responding to Priority 1 life and death emergencies. It took officers nearly 14 minutes to get to those calls in 2016. That number dropped to a little more than 12 minutes the following year, and 11 minutes and 58 seconds during the first half of 2018. But are they legit, or just a lot of spin? Police failed to tell the public what they did that ultimately improved response times. You see, this was a list of calls dispatchers classified as Priority 1, the most urgent calls requiring the fastest response. But in 2015, the Colorado Springs Police Department recategorized calls for service, taking nearly half of these calls and making them a lower priority. For example, calling Colorado Springs Police to report a drunk driver used to be a high Priority 1 call. It's now a Priority 2, although we should note police policy states they'll upgrade the call and respond quicker if the drunk driver is, quote, going the wrong way on the interstate or a major roadway. But that's little comfort for people like Kelly Sifford.
It doesn't matter whether they're going the wrong way, the right way. It's just a matter of time before they hit someone and kill someone.
Kelly lost her son Kyle back in 2015, the same year Colorado Springs Police lowered the priority for calls about drunk drivers.
The woman who killed my son was not going the wrong way. She ran a stop sign going 80 miles an hour and T-boned him. It doesn't take going the wrong way to kill someone.
Kyle was on his way to work when a woman named Cassandra Griffin slammed into him. She survived and is now serving time in prison. Unfortunately, Kyle's young son Carson is now having to grow up without his father.
Kyle's gone forever. He really was amazing. And there's a hole that will never, never, ever be filled.
She now spends her time as an advocate, raising awareness and supporting organizations like Mothers Against Drunk Drivers.
It's just a matter of time before they hit someone, injure them, or kill them. So unless we make it a priority to stop it and make it a Priority 1, I mean, it's just their weapon is a car, a vehicle. And it's not a gun, it's a vehicle. And a vehicle can do a great deal of damage.
According to Colorado Springs police policy, Priority 1 calls represent an imminent life-threatening situation that requires immediate response by police, fire, or medical personnel. A drunk driver doesn't fall into that category, at least not in Colorado Springs, and neither do calls related to burglaries in progress, suicidal attempts, shots fired, even traffic accidents with injuries. CSPD moved all of these Priority 1 calls to Priority 2 3 years ago. We even discovered Colorado Springs Police now code 911 calls centered around domestic and family disturbances as a lower priority. It's upsetting news for people like Lisa Jenkins.
It's a high priority when a person is calling for help. They're in a situation where they've gotten enough strength to say, you know what, I am done. I want to get some help. And so they should be supported.
Jenkins is the founder of Kingdom Builders Family Life Center, a local nonprofit offering education and support groups for domestic violence survivors. The topic hits close to home because she herself is a domestic violence survivor. She was appalled to hear that Colorado Springs Police will not raise the priority of domestic and family violence calls unless the disturbance turns physical or weapons are involved.
And I think that getting that call, it should be, okay, it's a domestic violence, we need to get there immediately and get that family safe, because it's all about getting the family safe and then determining afterwards, because there's no way to know from a phone call if it's going to turn into a physical one or not with weapons, because it can easily happen to where a person's life can end when it just starts with verbal, and it can escalate that fast.
We called other law enforcement agencies to find out whether they moved domestic disturbance calls into a lower priority call bank like CSPD did. We couldn't find any. We discovered police departments in Calhoun, Manitou Springs, Green Mountain Falls, Fountain, and Monument follow the El Paso County Sheriff's Office dispatch model, where we found domestic violence matters listed as a priority 1 call, along with suicidal attempts and burglary in progress calls. So why does CSPD feel these calls aren't as important?
We could talk about that some other time.
We spent months trying to get answers from Colorado Springs Police. At one point, we were told the chief would answer questions if we sent them via email. And we did, back in October. The department spokesperson then told us our questions were too specific and that we needed to pay them money to research and provide answers. So we caught up with the chief as he talked about his upcoming retirement. After 15 minutes of answering questions about that topic, we asked about the recategorization of emergency calls. Chief Carey would only say this before his spokesperson shut us down.
And we look at how we prioritize calls for service. And from time to time, we look at our policies and general orders.
But as many law enforcement agencies now offer mental health training for officers, CSPD no longer considers a call about a person threatening or attempting to commit suicide as life-threatening. The sheriff's office has a different opinion.
Priority of life, right? My job as a police officer is to make sure that I save life. Suicide a crime? It's not. But at the same time, that's a life lost. So if I need to utilize as much time as I can, as much resources that I have to save a life, I'm going to do it.
El Paso County Deputy John Hammond is part of the mental health unit at the sheriff's office. He and a licensed clinician respond to crisis calls. Before a ride-along we did to profile their specialized unit, we asked him about attempted suicide calls, which Colorado Springs police say they'll upgrade if, quote, the person has means to act.
How would the call taker know whether somebody truly has the means to act? If somebody calls in and says, hey, this person is suicidal, is there a way for them to truly know whether that person has means to act?
To be honest with you, I'm going to say no. They're not necessarily trained in asking specific questions on whether or not they have the intent to complete suicide. We really don't know whether or not they have that true intent until we can get boots on the ground and until we can get that clinician in place to do a really healthy and in-depth evaluation of that person.
We repeatedly asked the police department to explain what research they looked at prior to recoding calls. We never did receive a clear answer. And we learned the police department recategorized calls without ever alerting the city or council. Now, we reached out to Mayor Suthers for comment, but he did not respond to our questions. The Colorado Springs Police Department ultimately sent us a generic statement, which we've posted for you online. In part, the department said recategorizing these calls for service is, quote, a change that serves our community. But Rob and Elizabeth, consider this. Even after the department recategorized calls for service in 2015, year after year, the department still failed to respond to priority 1 calls in 8 minutes or less, more than half of the time.
So bottom line here, depending on what city or county you live in, they can establish their own rules as to which calls are the top priority calls.
And in fact, that is exactly what's happening here. And we should point out it is perfectly legal. We could not find a law or standard requiring police agencies to be on the same page with prioritizing calls. It's something we'll have to bring to the attention of lawmakers, and we certainly want to know what Colorado Springs City Council has to say about this. More to come.
All right, Eric, thank you.